Far beyond the bright worlds of humanity, where stars looked small and cold, a silent station floated in deep space. It was called Outpost K-12. No one important lived there. No one famous worked there. It was just a listening post, built to hear things no one else could hear. Inside the station, a man named Armin sat alone in a dark control room. Screens glowed softly around him. Numbers, signals, and star maps moved slowly across the displays. His job was simple: listen, record, and report anything unusual. Most days, nothing happened. This day was different. A strange signal appeared on one of the outer sensors. At first, Armin thought it was noise. Space was full of noise. Old signals, broken waves, echoes of long-dead stars. But this signal was steady. Too steady. Armin leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. He adjusted the filters, cleaned the data, and boosted the signal strength. The wave became clearer. It wasn't random. It was repeating. "That's not possible," he whispered. He ran another scan. Same result. The signal was coming from deep space, far beyond known maps. It didn't match any human code. It didn't match any known alien language either. Still, it had structure. That meant only one thing. It was a message. Armin's fingers moved quickly across the console. He began decoding patterns, breaking the signal into pieces. It took time. Minutes felt like hours as the system worked. Then suddenly, the system responded. Translation pattern found. Armin's heart began to beat faster. "All right, let's see what you are," he said quietly. The screen flickered. Symbols turned into simple words. Not perfect, not complete, but enough to understand. The message was short. Very short. Armin read it once. Then again. His face slowly lost all color. No, this has to be wrong. He rechecked everything. The signal. The translation. The pattern. All of it came back the same. There was no mistake. The message said, "They are coming." Armin felt a chill run through his body. That was it. No name. No details. Just a warning. But something about it felt heavy. Old. Like it had been sent a long time ago. He quickly checked the signal age. The result made his stomach drop. "Thousands of years," he said under his breath. This message had been traveling through space for thousands of years before reaching humanity. Which meant one thing. Whatever sent it was probably gone. Armin sat back slowly, staring at the screen. His mind raced with questions. Who sent it? What were they? And why send such a simple warning? Before he could think further, the system beeped again. Another signal. His eyes snapped back to the screen. It was the same source. But this time it wasn't a message. It was data. Massive amounts of it. Armin opened the file. Images filled the screen. Blurred, broken, but still clear enough to understand. Ships. Thousands of them. But they didn't look like ships. They looked alive. Dark shapes moving in space, twisting, changing form. Some were large like moons. Others were small and fast. They moved together like a swarm. And everything around them was being destroyed. Planets cracked open. Stations vanished in seconds. Fleets were torn apart like paper. The images showed destruction on a level Armin had never seen before. "No way," he whispered. One image froze on the screen. A final frame. A massive shape, larger than anything else, sitting in the center of the swarm. It pulsed like a living heart. And then, the feed ended. The room fell silent again. Armin didn't move for a long moment. Then training took over. He activated the emergency channel and sent everything to command. The signal, the translation, the images, all of it. His message was short and direct. Unknown threat detected. Possible extinction level danger. Immediate review required. He hit send. Somewhere far away, in the core worlds of humanity, people would soon see what he had seen. But Armin knew something they didn't. This message was ancient, and the things in those images were not. He looked back at the empty black of space outside the station window. For the first time in his life, the silence of space didn't feel peaceful. It felt like something was hiding in it. Watching. Waiting. Armin took a slow breath and whispered to himself. They're not just coming, His eyes stayed locked on the darkness. They're already on the way. The message from Outpost K-12 spread across human space faster than anything before it. Within hours, it reached military command, science centers, and government leaders. Screens lit up with the same 3 words. They are coming. But unlike many other species in the galaxy, humanity did not panic. They started searching. Deep under the surface of Earth, in a place called Archive Vault 7, old records were stored. Some were human, others were not. Over the years, humanity had explored abandoned ruins, broken ships, and lost stations. From these places, they had collected pieces of history. Most of it was incomplete. Some of it was strange. And a few parts were disturbing. A man named Daniel stood inside the cold vault, looking at rows of ancient data cores. He was not a soldier. He was a historian. His job was to study the past, especially the parts no one understood. Now, for the first time, the past felt important. A voice echoed through the room from the system above. Priority search request confirmed. Matching unknown threat signal with archived data. Daniel crossed his arms and waited. Around him, machines woke up. Lights flickered as old files were pulled from deep storage. "Come on," he muttered. "There has to be something." Minutes passed. Then the system spoke again. Match found. Multiple partial records detected. Daniel's eyes widened. "Show me." The screens came alive. The first record appeared, an old alien log, translated poorly into basic human language. The text was broken, but the meaning was clear. "We thought they were animals, we were wrong." Daniel leaned closer. More lines followed. "They do not stop. They do not fear. They learn." A chill ran down his back. "Keep going," he said quietly. Another record appeared. This one was from a different species. The symbols were different, but the translation told the same story. "Our fleets failed. Our weapons failed. They grew stronger with every battle." Daniel's face tightened. A third file opened. This one included images. Blurry. Damaged. But familiar. The same shapes Armin had seen. Dark, moving forms in space. Ships that looked alive. Daniel whispered, "So it's real." The system continued. Combining records. Building threat profile. More files appeared. Some were only a few lines. Others were longer, filled with fear and confusion. One message repeated across different records. "Do not fight them." Daniel shook his head slowly. Too late for that. Another file opened. This one was different. It wasn't just a warning, it was a report. The translation appeared slowly, word by word. "We tried to run. They followed. We tried to hide. They found us. We tried to surrender. They did not understand." Daniel felt his chest grow heavy. "Who were these people?" he whispered. The system answered. "Unknown. Civilization no longer exists." Silence filled the room. Daniel looked at the screens again. Dozens of lost civilizations. All gone. All destroyed by the same thing. Then something new appeared. Alert. Rare complete record found. Daniel's attention snapped back. "Play it." The screen changed. A video started. It was damaged, but still working. A figure appeared, an alien, tall and thin, standing in what looked like a command room. Behind it, chaos filled the background. Lights flickered. People moved in panic. The alien spoke. The translation followed. "If anyone finds this, listen carefully." Daniel stepped closer. "These creatures are not just alive, they are designed." He frowned. "Designed?" The message continued. "They change. They improve. Every time they fight, they become better." Daniel's mind raced. Adaptive. That explained everything. The alien's voice grew weaker. "We believe there is a source, something controlling them, guiding them." The screen shook violently. "If you want to survive, you must find it and destroy it." The video cut suddenly. The room went quiet again. Daniel stood still, staring at the last frozen frame. "A source," he said softly. "So they were not just animals. They were a system. A weapon." He turned away from the screen and looked around the cold vault. "All these civilizations," he said slowly. "They were afraid." He paused. Then his voice changed. But they also made a mistake. The system above him asked, "Clarify." Daniel looked back at the screen, his eyes focused. They tried to survive. He took a deep breath. Humans don't just survive. Far away, fleets were already being prepared. Weapons were being tested. Plans were being made. Humanity was not running. Daniel folded his arms and said quietly, "We fight." The ancient records had one message: do not fight them. Humanity's answer was simple: we will. The warning had been heard. The past had been studied. Now humanity made its choice. They would not run. Across Earth and its many colonies, a silent change began. There were no loud speeches. No panic in the streets. No chaos. From the outside, everything looked normal. But behind the scenes, everything was moving. Fast. In orbit above Earth, massive shipyards came to life. Long lines of unfinished warships floated in space, surrounded by hundreds of drones. Sparks of light flashed as machines worked without rest. Metal was cut, shaped, and fused together at incredible speed. A man named Alex stood on the command deck of one of the shipyards, watching the construction. "How long?" he asked. A nearby engineer checked the data pad. "At this rate, we can finish the first fleet in 3 weeks." Alex shook his head. "Not fast enough." The engineer hesitated. "We're already pushing beyond safe limits." Alex looked back at the growing fleet. His voice was calm, but firm. "Safe doesn't matter anymore." The engineer didn't reply, because he knew it was true. Far below, on Earth, military bases were expanding. Old weapons were taken out of storage. Some had not been used for years. Others had never been used at all. In a large underground facility, a woman named Maya walked past rows of heavy machines. Each one was designed for war. Some fired energy beams. Others launched powerful missiles. One machine stood apart from the rest. It was larger, darker, silent. Maya stopped in front of it. "Is it ready?" she asked. A technician nodded slowly. "It was never meant to be used." Maya kept her eyes on the machine. "That's not what I asked." The technician took a breath. "Yes, it's ready." Maya gave a small nod. "Good." She turned and walked away without another word. Humanity was opening doors it had once kept closed, because now it had no choice. In deep space, fleets began to gather. Ships from different colonies arrived one by one. Small ships, large ships, fast ships, heavy ships. They formed groups, then lines, then full battle formations. For the first time in a long time, humanity was not divided. They were united. On one of the command ships, a man named Ryan stood in front of a large screen. It showed the known edge of human space, and beyond it, empty darkness. "Any sign of them?" he asked. A voice answered from behind him. No visual contact yet. Ryan crossed his arms. "They're coming," he said quietly. "We just can't see them yet." The room stayed silent. Everyone had seen the recordings. Everyone knew what was out there. And still no one spoke of fear. Instead, they prepared. Back on Earth, scientists worked day and night. Labs were filled with energy, noise, and movement. New ideas were tested quickly. Old ideas were improved. A young researcher looked at a screen filled with data. "If they adapt," he said, "then we have to be faster." Another scientist replied, "We don't just need stronger weapons." She paused. "We need smarter ones." The work continued. Every failure became a lesson. Every success became a weapon. Humanity was learning just like the enemy, but faster. Meanwhile, messages were sent across all human systems. Not warnings. Not orders. Simple instructions. Prepare. Train. Stand ready. People followed them without question. On distant colonies, workers turned into soldiers. Pilots trained harder than ever before. Even civilians learned basic defense skills. No one was forced. They chose to be ready. Because deep down, everyone understood one thing. This war would reach everyone. And when it did, there would be no second chance. Days passed. Then weeks. The fleets grew larger. The weapons grew stronger. The plans became clearer. Humanity had studied the past. They had seen what happened to others. They had read the warnings. Do not fight them. But humans were not like the others. They didn't believe something was unbeatable. They believed everything had a weakness, and they would find it. On the edge of human space, Ryan stood again, staring into the darkness. This time, something was different. A signal appeared. Small, faint, but real. His eyes narrowed.
"Contact," he said.
The room came alive instantly. Confirmed. Unknown movement detected. Ryan didn't move. "Range?" he asked. "Still far, but closing." He gave a slow nod. "So it begins." Far away, hidden in the black of space, something moved. Not one thing. Many.
A swarm. Silent.
Growing closer. Ryan looked at the screen, his voice steady. "Get ready." Behind him, hundreds of ships waited. Weapons charged. Engines ready. Humans prepared. For the first time, the galaxy's deadliest monsters were not approaching a helpless civilization. They were approaching humanity, and humanity was waiting. At the far edge of known space, beyond the outer lines of human defense, there was a small alien civilization. Humans called them the Luma. They were peaceful, quiet, and not very advanced in war. Their ships were small. Their cities were bright and beautiful. They believed in trade, not conflict. They had heard the warning from humanity. They did not fully understand it, but they were afraid. A human scout ship had been sent to watch their system. It stayed far away, hidden behind a dead moon. Inside the ship, a man named Leo sat with his team, observing the Luma homeworld on the main screen. "They don't look ready," one of the crew members said softly. Leo nodded. "They're not." "Should we move closer?" another asked. Leo shook his head. "Orders are clear. Observe only." The room fell silent again. Everyone felt it. Something was coming. Hours passed. Then, a signal appeared.
Sharp. Sudden. Strong.
Leo's eyes locked on the screen. There. The system zoomed in. At first, there was nothing. Just darkness. Then, slowly, shapes appeared.
Dozens of them.
No, hundreds. They moved like shadows, twisting and shifting. Some were long and thin. Others were wide and heavy. None of them looked like normal ships. "They're here," someone whispered. Leo didn't speak. He just watched. The swarm moved toward the Luma system without hesitation. No signals. No warning. No delay. Straight in. "Luma Defense Fleet is launching," the system reported. On the screen, small ships rushed out from the planet. Lines of light formed as they powered their weapons. The Luma were not running. They were trying to fight. Leo clenched his jaw. Record everything. The battle began. The Luma ships fired first. Bright beams of energy cut across space, hitting the front of the swarm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creatures moved.
Fast.
Too fast. They broke apart, dodging attacks with impossible speed. Some rushed forward, crashing directly into the Luma ships. Leo's eyes widened. "They're not firing there."
He stopped.
Because he saw it clearly. The creatures were tearing the ships apart. No explosions. No missiles. Just raw force. Metal broke like glass. Ships were ripped open. Light faded one by one as the Luma fleet disappeared. "It's too fast," a crew member said, voice shaking. Leo didn't respond. He couldn't. The battle wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. Within minutes, the Luma defense fleet was gone. The swarm didn't slow down. It moved toward the planet. "No," Leo whispered. On the screen, the beautiful world of the Luma filled the view. Cities glowed softly across its surface. Peaceful. Unprotected. The first creature reached the atmosphere. Then another. Then hundreds. They entered like falling shadows. Seconds later, the surface lit up. Not with light, but with destruction. Massive cracks spread across the planet's surface. Entire cities vanished in moments. Energy readings spiked wildly. Leo felt his hands tighten. "Are they attacking the core?" someone asked. The answer came quickly. Yes. The planet shook. Even from space, it was clear. Something inside the world was breaking. Leo stared in disbelief. They're not just destroying. He paused. They're erasing it. A deep crack formed across the planet. It grew wider and wider. Then, the world split. The screen filled with light and debris as the planet broke apart. Silence filled the room. No one spoke. No one moved. Everything was gone. The Luma civilization had ended in less than an hour. The swarm did not stop. It moved through the broken pieces of the planet, gathering, shifting, changing. Leo noticed something strange.
Zoom in, he said.
The system focused closer. His eyes narrowed. They're different. The shapes had changed slightly. Some were larger. Others had new forms. They adapted, he said quietly. They used the battle to improve. Another finished. Leo felt a cold weight settle in his chest. So the records were true. Every fight made them stronger. The swarm turned. And then, it started moving again, toward human space. Leo took a slow breath and activated the emergency channel. "Command, this is Scout Team 7, he said, voice steady but heavy. "First contact confirmed." He paused for a second, then continued. "Alien civilization destroyed. Total loss." The room stayed silent as he looked at the screen one last time. They didn't just win. His voice grew darker. They learned. He sent the transmission. Far away, Human Command received it instantly. There was no more doubt. No more waiting. The enemy had arrived. And now it was coming for them. Back on the scout ship, Leo gave one final order. Set course back to fleet. The engines powered up. As the ship turned away, the broken remains of the Luma world faded into the darkness. Behind them, the swarm moved silently. Closer, stronger, and ready for the next fight. The fall of the Luma world changed everything. The recordings reached Human Command within minutes. Every leader, every general, every scientist watched the same scene. The swarm arriving, the fleet failing, the planet breaking apart. There was no more doubt. The enemy could not be stopped by normal means. But humanity did not lose hope. They changed strategy. In a large command center above Earth, the main screen showed a map of human space. Dozens of star systems were marked in different colors. Some were safe. Some were at risk. A man named Ryan stood in the center of the room, looking at the map.
"They don't slow down," he said.
"They don't stop.
"They don't retreat."
A woman named Maya stood beside him. "And they learn from every fight." Ryan nodded. "So we stop fighting them the old way." He turned to face the others in the room. "We don't defend." A quiet tension filled the air. "We trap them." The room stayed silent for a moment. Then one officer asked, "Trap them how?" Ryan stepped forward and pointed at the map. "We choose where they fight." His finger moved across several outer systems. Empty systems. No civilians. No cities. Maya understood quickly. "Kill zones." Ryan nodded. "Exactly." Plans began to form immediately. Outer colonies were evacuated. People were moved to safer worlds deeper inside human space. Entire systems were cleared, leaving nothing behind but stations, weapons, and hidden fleets. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity was running. But it wasn't. It was preparing the battlefield. In one of the selected systems, engineers worked without rest. Massive platforms were built around a dead star. Each one held powerful weapons stronger than anything used before. A man named Alex walked along one of the platforms, watching the work. "Status?" he asked. A technician replied, "Main cannons are online. Energy levels stable." Alex looked out into space. "And the bait?" The technician gave a small smile. "Ready." Far away from the platforms, a group of ships floated quietly. They were not warships. They were signals. Each one was designed to send out energy patterns that would attract the swarm. "They'll see it as life," the technician explained. "Something worth attacking." Alex nodded slowly. "Good." Humanity had studied the enemy carefully. They knew one thing for sure. The swarm always moved toward activity, toward energy, toward life. So humanity would give them exactly that. A target but not a real one. A trap. Meanwhile, deep inside human space, scientists continued their work. They studied the battle from the Luma world again and again. A young scientist pointed at the screen.
Here, he said.
Every time they attack, they change slightly. Another replied, so we hit them with something new every time. The first one nodded.
Yes.
Don't let them adapt too easily. This idea spread quickly. Weapons were modified.
Patterns were changed.
Nothing would stay the same for long. If the enemy could learn, so could humans. Back at the command center, Ryan watched as the final preparations came together. Evacuation complete, a voice reported. Defense platforms ready. Fleets in position. Ryan took a slow breath. Everything was set. Maya looked at him. Once we start this, there's no turning back. Ryan didn't hesitate. There was never a way back. Far at the edge of the system, a small signal ship powered on. Its energy spread out into space like a beacon.
Bright. Clear.
Impossible to ignore. Hours passed. Then, a detection alert sounded. They've entered the outer range, an officer said. The room became still. On the screen, small dots appeared. Then more. Then hundreds. The swarm had arrived. Ryan's eyes stayed fixed on the display. They took the bait, he said quietly. The creatures moved exactly as expected, straight toward the signal ships. No hesitation. No caution. Just pure instinct. Let them come closer, Ryan ordered. The swarm moved deeper into the system. Closer to the center. Closer to the trap. Alex stood on the weapons platform, watching the same data. Range, he asked. Almost there. He clenched his hand slightly. Hold fire. The signal ships continued to shine. Bright targets in the dark. The swarm surrounded them. More and more creatures entered the zone. The trap was filling. Back in command, Maya spoke softly. If this works, Ryan finished her thought. It will be the first time they lose. Seconds passed. Then, full swarm inside kill zone, an officer announced. Ryan didn't wait. Fire. In an instant, space lit up. Massive beams of energy shot from every platform. Missiles followed, filling the dark with light and fire. The center of the swarm exploded with power. For the first time, the monsters were hit by something they did not expect. The trap had been set, and humanity had just made its move. The moment the order was given, the trap came alive. Blinding beams of energy tore across space from every direction. Missiles followed, fast and silent, then exploding in waves of fire. The center of the swarm disappeared inside a storm of light. For a few seconds, nothing could be seen. Just energy. Just destruction. On the command screen, the signals of the creatures began to flicker. Direct hits confirmed, an officer said quickly. Ryan stood still, watching. Keep firing, he ordered. More beams. More missiles. The entire system shook with power. The platforms pushed beyond normal limits, pouring everything they had into the attack. For the first time since the enemy had appeared, they were being overwhelmed. Alex stood on the weapons platform, gripping the rail as the massive cannons fired again and again. Energy levels dropping, a technician shouted. Alex didn't look away. Hold the line. Don't stop. The attack continued. Then something changed. Movement detected, another technician said. Alex's eyes narrowed. Show me. The screen zoomed in. At the center of the explosion, shapes began to appear. Dark shapes. Moving. They're still alive, someone whispered. The creatures pushed through the fire, damaged but not destroyed. Some had lost parts of their bodies. Others moved slower. But they were still coming. Ryan saw it too. They survived the first strike, Maya said quietly. Ryan nodded once. Then we hit them again. Second wave, fire. Another storm of weapons filled space. This time, the attack was more focused. Smaller beams, faster strikes, constant pressure. The swarm reacted. For the first time, it did not move forward blindly. It spread out. They're changing formation, an officer reported. Ryan's voice stayed calm. They're adapting. On the battlefield, the creatures moved differently now. They dodged more. They avoided the strongest attacks. Some of them rushed toward the platforms instead of the bait. They figured it out, Alex said under his breath. One of the creatures slammed into a defense platform. The impact shook the entire structure. Damage on platform 3, a technician shouted. Another creature followed. Then another. They're targeting the weapons, someone yelled. Alex turned sharply. All units, defensive mode. Protect the platforms. Human warships that had been waiting in the shadows powered forward. Engines roared. Weapons charged. The fleet entered the fight. Ships moved between the platforms and the swarm, firing rapidly. Energy beams cut through space, striking the incoming creatures at close range.
The battle had changed.
It was no longer a trap. It was a fight. On the command ship, Ryan watched as human forces engaged directly. Loss reports coming in, an officer said. Ryan didn't react. Status. We're holding but barely. The swarm kept coming. Even under heavy fire, even while taking damage, they didn't stop. They didn't retreat. They don't feel fear, Maya said. Ryan's eyes stayed on the screen. Neither do we. On the battlefield, one human ship was surrounded. 3 creatures slammed into it at once. The ship fired everything it had. 2 of the creatures broke apart. The third reached the hull. Then, the ship exploded. A bright flash in the dark.
Gone.
Ship down, a voice said quietly. More ships followed. But something else happened too. The creatures were falling. For every human loss, several of the enemy were destroyed. It wasn't enough, but it was something new. They're taking real damage, Maya said. Ryan nodded slowly. Yes. That had never happened before. In all the ancient records, no one had ever stopped them. No one had ever slowed them.
But now,
they were bleeding. Back on the platform, Alex saw the same thing. They're not invincible, he said. Another creature rushed toward the platform. Alex gave a sharp command. Fire point blank. A heavy cannon turned and released a direct blast. The creature was hit. For a moment it held together. Then it broke apart.
Destroyed.
The crew stared in silence. Then one of them said softly, "We can kill them." The word spread quickly across all channels. We can kill them. It was not hope. It was proof. The battle continued for hours. The swarm pushed forward. Human forces pushed back. Both sides took losses. But one thing was clear. This was not like the Luma world. This was not a one-sided destruction. This was war. And for the first time in their long history, the galaxy's deadliest monsters had met something that fought back. Hard, relentless, unafraid. As the battle slowed and both sides pulled back slightly, Ryan looked at the final reports. Heavy damage, high losses. But the swarm had not broken through. He took a slow breath. This is just the beginning, Maya said. Ryan nodded. Yes. He looked at the screen, where the remaining creatures gathered again in the distance. They came expecting an easy victory. His voice became firm. They were wrong. Far out in space, the swarm shifted, changed, and prepared for the next move.
But now, so did humanity.
After the first clash, human forces pulled back to analyze the results. The battlefield was quiet now, but the data told a story louder than any explosion. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy's deadliest creatures had been slowed. Humanity had inflicted damage. And now they had a chance to learn. In the main command center, Ryan sat in front of a massive screen. Streams of information flowed constantly: ship logs, damage reports, energy readings, and images of the creatures taken from every angle. He traced patterns with his finger, watching the way the enemy moved, attacked, and adapted. They're not invincible, he said softly. But they're fast. Too fast to hit without predicting them. Maya leaned over his shoulder, her eyes scanning the same data. Every time we hit them, they change. Different formation, different attack pattern. They learn from us. Ryan nodded. Then we have to make them learn wrong things. The team understood immediately. Misinformation, tricks, decoys. Every action in battle could be used to confuse the creatures, slow their adaptation, and give humanity the advantage. In a laboratory on one of the orbital platforms, scientists were working furiously. They examined the remains of destroyed creatures captured during the fight. Some were missing limbs, others had burnt surfaces, and a few had systems entirely shut down. They adapt biologically, a scientist named Eli explained. Every time they survive an attack, they reorganize. They get stronger, faster, smarter. A young researcher added, "So we can't just keep repeating the same attacks. We need variety. Change the weapons. Change the formations. Change everything." Eli nodded slowly. Exactly. Force them to make mistakes. Force them to waste energy. That's the only way to beat them. Meanwhile, fleets repaired and refueled. Ships that had taken damage were quickly reinforced. Crews studied their own mistakes as carefully as the enemy's. Every misfire, every failed maneuver, every lost ship became part of the growing strategy. Humanity learned quickly because humans always did. Far out in space, sensors tracked the movements of the surviving creatures. The swarm was not attacking yet. Instead, it circled, adjusted formations, and seemed to be evaluating the battlefield. It had learned something, but it did not know everything. Ryan gathered his top officers for a briefing. "They survived our first strike," he said, "but we survived too. That means we can fight back. That means we can control the battle. Our job now is simple: study them, predict them, and force them to lose." An officer raised a hand. "Sir, are you saying we fight defensively?" Ryan shook his head.
No.
"Not defensive.
Strategic.
We let them think they're in control. Then we hit where they're weakest." Maya pointed at the screen. "We can't underestimate them. They destroyed the Luma. They wiped out entire fleets before. If we make a mistake..." Ryan finished her thought.
"We die."
The room went silent. Everyone understood the stakes. Over the next days, humans ran countless simulations. They tested every weapon, every formation, every maneuver. The creatures' patterns were studied with precision. Every new attack was recorded, analyzed, and compared with the previous ones. Eli looked at a model of a destroyed creature. "See here?" He pointed at a joint in its limb. "If we strike at this point, we can disable them faster. But we have to time it perfectly." A technician added, "And if we strike wrong, they adapt. They get better." Ryan smiled slightly. "Then we make them strike wrong." By combining real battle data with simulations, humanity began to see a clear strategy forming. They couldn't destroy the entire swarm at once. They couldn't win by force alone. But they could win by being smarter. By making the enemy react to human plans instead of their own instincts, humanity could take control of the battlefield. The first clash had been brutal. Humans had lost ships. They had lost men and women. But now, every loss had a purpose. Every failure was a lesson. Even from the darkness of space, Ryan could see the enemy's next move forming. The creatures were circling human territory. They were preparing to attack again, but this time, humans were ready in ways the creatures could not anticipate. Maya turned to Ryan. "They're coming back.
Soon.
We have to be ready." Ryan nodded. "We are ready. This time, they fight on our terms." The creatures would attack again. They would test humanity. They would adapt. But humanity was learning faster. And for the first time, the galaxy's deadliest monsters were facing something they had never faced before. Humans who could learn, adapt, and fight back with strategy, intelligence, and courage. Ryan looked at the stars outside the command center. The swarm was far, but it was coming. He whispered to himself, quietly, almost like a promise. "Let them come. We're ready." Weeks had passed since the first clash. Humanity had studied, adapted, and prepared. Every loss, every failure had been recorded, analyzed, and turned into a lesson. Now, the fleets were ready not just to defend but to fight on their terms. In the command center above Earth, Ryan stood before a massive holographic map. Red blips marked the approaching swarm. Hundreds, maybe thousands, were moving across space toward human territory. But unlike before, they were walking into a trap. One designed by humans who had learned to think faster, move smarter, and strike harder. They're moving into the kill zone, Maya said, her eyes fixed on the screen. Just like we predicted. Ryan nodded. Let's make this count. This is the moment we show them humans are not easy prey. In the outer system, the fleets were ready. Ships of every size and shape hovered in formation. Heavy cannons, energy weapons, and missiles were all charged. Every crew member knew their role. Every ship's path had been calculated down to the second. Alex walked along the deck of one of the largest platforms. He paused at the rail, staring into the blackness of space. They're coming, he said quietly. Then we hit them harder, a technician replied, without hesitation. As the first creatures entered the kill zone, the human fleets sprang into action. The moment was precise, calculated. Every shot fired, every missile launched, was part of a plan. The swarm collided with the human trap, and the first wave was shredded by concentrated fire. For the first time, the creatures did not immediately adapt. The humans had forced them into patterns they could not escape. Explosions lit up space. Shattered forms of the creatures fell apart in every direction. Direct hits confirmed. A crew member shouted. They're breaking formation. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. Keep pressure. Do not let them reorganize. But the swarm was not defeated yet. Survivors twisted and shifted, trying to find weak points. Some charged directly at the platforms. Others flanked the human ships, testing defenses. Maya watched the movement carefully. They're learning faster this time. We need to adjust. Ryan turned to the tactical officers. Switch formations now. Target the larger clusters first. Use every weapon we have. No mercy. In the chaos of the battle, the humans fought smarter than the enemy. Small mistakes by the creatures were exploited immediately. Missiles were fired at openings in their formation. Energy beams struck joints and weak points. Every creature that survived the first strike was hit harder in the second. Alex saw a massive creature approaching one of the platforms. Its body shimmered, indicating rapid adaptation. He ordered, Target point 53, focus all fire. The combined energy of multiple weapons struck the creature at once. For a moment, it froze, as if stunned. Then, with a heavy shudder, it broke apart into pieces that floated helplessly in space. They're falling, someone shouted across the deck. We're winning. But Ryan knew the victory was not complete. Stay alert. They will adapt again. Despite the danger, the humans had gained the upper hand. The swarm could no longer advance freely. Every attack was anticipated, countered, and turned into a trap of its own. For the first time, the monsters of the galaxy were taking real losses that slowed their momentum. In one corner of the command center, Eli studied live data from the battlefield. They're beginning to hesitate, he said. They don't know which way to attack next. Maya's eyes sparkled. That's good. Very good. Keep it up. Across the kill zone, human fleets pressed forward, not waiting for the enemy to strike again. Every move was precise, every weapon aimed for maximum impact. The tide was changing. Humanity was not just surviving, it was winning. Ryan looked at the screens, his voice calm but firm. This is the proof. They can be beaten. They can be slowed. And if we keep learning faster than they do, they can be destroyed. In space, the remaining creatures tried to regroup, forming small clusters. They had adapted before, but this time, humanity forced them into chaos. Every maneuver they made brought them closer to destruction. On the command deck, the officers felt something new, a sense of hope. Not blind hope, not wishful thinking. Solid, calculated hope. Humanity had seen the enemy and had finally found a way to fight back. Ryan turned toward Maya. Prepare for the counterattack. We will push them out of this system completely. Maya nodded. The swarm thinks they're dangerous. Soon, they'll learn the truth. And far beyond the kill zone, in the silent darkness of space, the swarm sensed the change. Losses were mounting. Their movements were no longer smooth. Hesitation had entered their instincts. Humanity was turning the tide. And the galaxy's deadliest monsters had never faced anything like it. For the first time, they were afraid. And humans, steady, determined, relentless, were ready to strike again. The the battlefield was alive with fire and energy. The human fleets, now confident from their first victories, moved with precision. Every ship, every cannon, every missile was part of a carefully planned dance. The swarm had been slowed, pushed back, and forced into disarray. But the creatures were far from defeated. On the command bridge, Ryan studied the displays. Red blips of the surviving swarm hovered at the edge of the kill zone, trying to regroup. They moved differently now, more cautious, more deliberate. They had learned from the last battle, but that only meant humans needed to strike harder, faster, smarter. Maya turned to Ryan, her eyes sharp. They're adapting. We can't let them recover. Ryan nodded. Then we finish what we started. Across the platforms, Alex watched the approaching creatures. His hands moved quickly over the controls. Weapons charged, energy beams ready. Every targeting system was active. The humans had prepared a special tactic for this moment, a counterstrike designed to exploit the swarm's adaptation. All units, Ryan's voice came over the channel, calm and steady. Follow the plan. Focus fire on the clusters closest to the center. Keep moving, stay unpredictable. Do not give them time to react. The first wave of the counterstrike launched. Ships surged forward, weaving between the swarm, firing rapid pulses of energy. Missiles streaked through the darkness, exploding against the creatures with precision. For a moment, the swarm seemed to pause. Confusion rippled through their ranks. The humans were no longer reacting, they were dictating the battle. Alex spotted a large creature breaking away from the main group, heading toward one of the platforms. Its body shimmered with adaptation, but it was exposed. Target locked, Alex said, his voice low. Firing now. A concentrated blast hit the creature directly. It screamed, a soundless, unnatural vibration that echoed across the sensors and shattered into pieces. Direct hit, a technician shouted. One down. The other creatures reacted, but it was too late. The humans had already predicted their moves. Every cluster of the swarm was met with overwhelming fire. Ships moved in patterns that forced the creatures to expose weak points. Every strike hit a vital area, slowing them, wounding them, killing them. Keep the pressure, Ryan ordered. Don't let them regroup. The swarm began to retreat slightly, but the humans did not let up. Instead of following blindly, they split their forces, surrounding the enemy from multiple directions. Missiles rained from above, below, and the sides, forcing the creatures into corners of space where heavy cannons waited. Maya watched the display, noting patterns of adaptation. They're trying to mimic our moves, she said. They're learning, but too slowly. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Then we make them learn wrong things. Across the kill zone, human ships executed new maneuvers, feints, and sudden shifts. The swarm followed instinctively, exposing vulnerable points with every move. Explosions filled the darkness as more creatures fell, and the human fleet pushed forward relentlessly. Alex called out, "Cluster delta braking. Focus everything there." Energy beams struck in perfect synchronization. Explosions tore through the swarm, leaving floating fragments in the void. For the first time, humans saw the enemy being truly destroyed in large numbers. But the cost was high. Several human ships had been lost, their crews gone in flashes of light. Yet the fleet held. Every loss was accounted for, every maneuver corrected. Humans were learning faster than the swarm could adapt. In the command center, Ryan smiled slightly, a rare moment of satisfaction. We're pushing them back. They didn't expect us to fight like this. Maya's voice was firm. They'll come again. They always do. But now we're ready. Sensors showed the remaining creatures retreating in disorganized clusters. They were slower, weaker, and their formations had fractured. The humans had turned the tide. This is the first real victory, Ryan said quietly. But it's not the last. They'll regroup, adapt, and strike again. Alex looked at the remains of the fallen creatures floating in space. They thought they were unstoppable, he said. Now they know humans are not easy prey. Maya added, and we'll be ready next time.
Smarter, faster,
Stronger. As the fleet regrouped, Ryan's gaze remained on the dark edge of space. The swarm was still out there, waiting. But humanity had changed the rules of the game. For the first time, the galaxy's deadliest monsters had met resistance they could not easily overcome. And humanity was just getting started. The victories had boosted morale across human space. Fleets were repairing, rebuilding, and preparing for the next engagement. Every crew member knew that the swarm would return, stronger and smarter than before. And humanity was ready. Ryan stood in the command center, staring at the map. Red blips still moved at the edge of human space, smaller now, scattered, fractured. But intelligence reports had revealed something alarming. The swarm wasn't just a collection of independent creatures. They were organized. They had a core, a heart, somewhere in the darkness. They adapt so quickly, Maya said, looking at Ryan. They must be guided. There has to be a source controlling them. Ryan nodded. Then we find it. And we destroy it. The plan was simple but dangerous. A strike team would go deep into enemy space. They would follow the trails left by the swarm, using the fleet as cover, and find the central node, the heart of the swarm. Once located, humanity would strike with everything they had. Alex walked along one of the orbital platforms, watching the preparations. This is going to be risky, he said quietly. Maya's eyes were steady. Everything we do is risky. That's the point. But this is the chance to end it. Far away, the fleet assembled in formation. Ships of all sizes glimmered in the darkness, weapons charged, shields at maximum. Drones flew ahead, scouting for any sign of the enemy. Ryan gave a final command. Engage stealth protocols. Move carefully. We do not want to alert them too early. The fleet moved silently into the void, scanning, listening, analyzing. Every sensor was active. Every ship was ready. The first signs appeared hours later. Traces of energy, broken formations, remnants of creatures that had moved too far ahead. Path confirmed, a technician said. The heart is somewhere in this sector. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Prepare for direct engagement. Once we find it, we hit with full force. As they approached, the fleet encountered small pockets of the swarm. These were scouts, guardians, or perhaps traps. They moved fast, striking with deadly precision, but humanity had learned from every previous battle. Missiles fired, energy beams swept through space, and the creatures were destroyed, one by one. They're testing us, Maya said. They're guarding something. The closer they got, the larger the creatures became. Shadows twisted in unnatural ways, some stretching longer than entire ships, others armored with strange, dark plating that absorbed energy. Yet every loss fed back to the swarm, helping it adapt, but humanity stayed ahead. Hours later, a massive structure appeared. Unlike the swarm's usual shifting forms, this one was fixed, solid, and enormous. It pulsed with a dark energy that made sensors spike. There, Alex whispered. That has to be it. The heart. Ryan's voice was calm but firm. All units, prepare for full engagement. This is what we've been training for. The fleet spread out, creating firing lanes. Heavy cannons and missiles lined up with precision. Drones circled the structure, marking weak points. Humanity had studied every attack pattern the swarm had used, and now they would use that knowledge to strike at the source. The heart pulsed again, and shadows around it shifted violently. Creatures emerged to defend it, faster and stronger than anything they had seen before. But human crews were ready. Focus fire on the outer guardians, Ryan commanded. Do not let them reach the fleet. Energy beams cut through space, tearing the creatures apart. Missiles hit weak points, breaking the coordinated attack. The swarm reacted, adapting quickly, but humans stayed one step ahead. Every move, every strike, every counter was planned and executed flawlessly. Maya watched as one massive guardian approached Alex's platform. Hit it now, she shouted. Alex activated the cannons. A concentrated blast struck the creature, breaking it into pieces that scattered across the void. Outer defenses down, Alex reported. Ryan's eyes never left the heart. All units, focus everything on the core. No hesitation. The fleet unleashed a storm of fire. Massive energy beams cut across the structure. Missiles exploded at precise points. The heart shuddered violently, dark energy spilling into space. But it fought back. Shadows lashed out, striking ships and platforms, trying to protect their source. Still, humanity held. Hours passed. Every strike, every loss, every adjustment brought them closer. Then the heart cracked. Energy surged outward, violent and chaotic. The swarm shivered as if in pain. Ryan's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with determination.
Now.
Everything we have. A final barrage hit the structure. It exploded in a wave of energy that lit up the void. The remaining creatures scattered, disorganized, leaderless. The heart of the swarm was gone. Silence followed. Humanity had struck at the center. They had delivered a blow no creature had survived before. And in that silence, a new hope spread across the command center. Maya whispered, "It's over for now." Ryan shook his head slowly. "It's never over. But we've shown them something. They can be beaten." Far in the darkness of space, the scattered remnants of the swarm retreated, leaderless, weaker and confused. Humanity had taken the first step toward controlling the war. And now, they knew this truth. Even the deadliest monsters of the galaxy could be fought and defeated if humans were willing to learn, adapt, and never give up. The heart of the swarm was gone. The pulse that had guided hundreds, maybe thousands, of creatures had been destroyed. Yet, the battlefield was quiet only in appearance. Space was littered with debris from both sides, ships, weapons, fragments of the swarm, and the smell of energy, fire, and smoke lingered even in the vacuum. On the command deck, Ryan stood silently, watching the aftermath. The screen showed scattered red blips retreating into the darkness, leaderless and confused. Humanity had won this battle, but he knew it was not the end. The swarm had survived for millions of years because it could adapt. Even shattered, it would rebuild. Even beaten, it would return. Maya walked up beside him. "We did what no one thought possible. We struck at their center." Ryan nodded slowly.
Yes.
"But we can't celebrate yet. This was only one strike. They will come back, stronger, smarter." Alex, standing near the command console, shook his head. "And yet, we've learned more than they have. For the first time, we've forced them to retreat." Ryan's lips pressed into a thin line. "Exactly. They are learning now. We made them see that humans are not easy prey, that we fight differently, that we adapt faster than they do." In the aftermath, teams across the fleet began assessing losses. Ships were repaired, weapons restocked, and crews counted.
Some were missing.
Others were injured. But the human spirit, stronger than ever, refused to yield. Eli, the scientist, studied data from the battlefield, his fingers tracing lines across holographic displays. "Their adaptation process is delayed," he noted. "We disrupted their communication network when we destroyed the heart. They're not fully coordinated now. It's an opportunity." Maya looked at him sharply. "Opportunity for what?" Eli smiled slightly.
To prepare.
"To strike again. To keep them reacting to us instead of the other way around." Ryan listened, absorbing every word. Humanity had won the first major clash, but the battle was far from over. Every victory was temporary if it was not followed by preparation, strategy, and relentless improvement. Far below, on Earth and its colonies, civilians and soldiers alike celebrated cautiously. The news spread quickly. Humanity had struck back against the deadliest monsters in the galaxy and survived. Relief mingled with pride, but also with fear. People understood this truth. Humanity had only won a single battle in a war that would test every skill, every mind, and every heart. Across the fleets, crews worked tirelessly. They shared knowledge from the battle, analyzed mistakes, and developed new strategies. Every ship became a school. Every soldier became a teacher. The swarm had been beaten, but humans could not afford overconfidence. On one platform, Alex watched the repaired cannons glide into position. "We'll be ready next time," he said quietly. Maya's eyes met his. "Next time, we won't just defend. We'll control the fight entirely." Ryan stepped back from the command console, looking out at the void. The red blips of the surviving swarm were gone from sensors, but he knew better. They would return and soon. But humanity had changed. Humans had learned, adapted, and survived battles no one thought they could. In the silence of space, Ryan whispered to himself, a promise more than an order. We will not lose.
Not now.
Not ever. Eli appeared beside him, holding a tablet filled with data from the destroyed heart. The swarm's biology is remarkable, he said. Even fragmented, it can rebuild over time. But their core energy systems are vulnerable. We now have a blueprint for the next strike. Ryan nodded. Then we prepare. They will adapt, yes, but so will we.
Faster.
Smarter. Harder. Across the platforms and ships, humanity's fleets hummed with life. Repairs were complete. Weapon systems were online. Pilots trained tirelessly, simulations ran continuously, and engineers developed new strategies. Every human knew that the swarm would return. Every human was ready to meet them. In the distance, the remnants of the destroyed creatures slowly scattered into uncharted space. Leaderless, disorganized, they were weaker than before. Humanity had struck the first blow, but the galaxies still held dangers unseen, and the swarm's numbers could rise again. Ryan looked around at his officers. We've shown them we can fight, he said. Now we show them we can win. Maya added, they think they're the deadliest in the galaxy. Let's remind them humans don't give up. We learn, we fight, and we survive. Alex looked out at the stars. And we don't just survive, we thrive. That's what makes us human. The silence of space settled over the fleet once more. But it was not peace. It was a quiet before the next storm. The swarm would return, but humanity had learned their weakness. And the humans who had survived this battle were ready to strike again. Ryan whispered one last time, more to himself than anyone else. Let them come. We're ready. And next time, we won't just fight. We'll win. In the cold darkness of space, humanity's fleets glimmered with life, purpose, and determination. The galaxy's deadliest monsters had met something they had never expected. Humans who refused to die, humans who refused to flee, humans who would never surrender. And that truth would echo across the stars. The swarm had retreated, broken and leaderless, but the war was far from over. In the silence of space, humanity gathered its strength. Fleets repaired, weapons upgraded, and strategies refined. Every loss had been a lesson. Every victory had been a step toward mastery. Humanity had learned faster than the galaxy's deadliest monsters could adapt. Ryan walked along the command deck, his eyes scanning the stars. The red blips of the swarm were gone from sensors, but he knew better. The creatures were still out there, waiting, calculating, preparing to strike again. They'll come back, Maya said quietly. She stood beside him, watching the same empty darkness. And next time they'll be stronger. Ryan nodded slowly. So will we. We're not just waiting. We're preparing. Every system, every fleet, every soldier will be ready. Across the platforms, crews worked tirelessly. Ships that had survived the previous battles were reinforced. New pilots trained relentlessly, practicing evasive maneuvers, advanced formations, and new weapon systems. Every day was a step toward perfection. Humanity had become a learning organism, adapting with every encounter. In the research labs, Eli and his team studied the fragments of the swarm's destroyed heart. They discovered weaknesses in its energy patterns, flaws in its defensive systems, and insights into its rapid adaptation process. These discoveries became new weapons, new strategies, and new hope. Alex stood on one of the outer platforms, watching the stars. They've underestimated us before, he said. They think they're unstoppable. They think we're weak. Soon, they'll realize we're neither. Ryan joined him, his gaze firm. They've never faced an enemy that learns faster than they do. They've never faced humans who adapt, fight, and survive against impossible odds. And they never will. In the fleets, communication channels buzzed with activity. Pilots and captains shared battle simulations, predicted movements, and tested new strategies. Humanity had turned knowledge into power. The enemy had always relied on instinct and overwhelming force. Humans relied on intelligence, teamwork, and relentless innovation. From Earth to the outer colonies, every citizen felt the change. Fear had not disappeared, but it was replaced with determination. Humanity had survived the first wave of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. And now, they were ready to defend, fight, and conquer. Ryan's voice came over the communication channels. Calm, steady, commanding. Attention, all fleets. The swarm may return at any time. We do not fear them. We do not flee. We stand ready. Every human, every ship, every weapon is prepared. And when they strike, they will meet the full force of humanity's will. Maya added, remember what we've learned. They adapt. We adapt faster. They strike. We strike smarter. They survive. We outlast them. This is our galaxy. And we will not surrender it to monsters. Alex smiled slightly. They came thinking they were the deadliest. We've shown them they're not. And we will keep showing them that every time. The fleets aligned in the outer systems, forming layers of defense and attack. Platforms glimmered with energy, ready to unleash overwhelming fire. Ships patrolled the edges, scanning for any sign of the enemy. Drones moved silently ahead, mapping space and searching for anomalies. Every human was alert, every system primed for battle. In the silence of space, the stars seemed brighter. Each light was a reminder of what humanity protected: life, freedom, and hope. The galaxy was vast, but humans were determined. They had faced extinction, destruction, and monsters thought unstoppable. And yet they survived. Ryan looked toward the dark expanse beyond the kill zones. They'll come again, he said quietly. They always do.
But now we're ready.
And this time, we won't just defend. We'll strike. We'll control. We'll win. Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. The swarm may be the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, she said. But we are humanity. We do not stop. We do not surrender.
We do not die.
Across the fleets, the crews prepared for the next wave. Missiles were loaded, energy beams charged, and shields reinforced. Humans trained, simulated, and strategized. Every loss had a purpose. Every victory built strength. Humanity had learned, and that knowledge was now their greatest weapon. And far out in the darkness, the remnants of the swarm waited. They were scattered, leaderless, and damaged, but not gone. They would return.
They always did.
But the humans they thought were weak, fragile, and defenseless had changed. They were not easy prey. They were ready. They were learning. They were fighting. And the galaxy would remember the day humanity stood against the deadliest monsters it had ever known, and survived, stronger, smarter, and unbroken. Ryan whispered one final time, a vow carried across the stars. Let them come. We are ready. Humanity does not fear. Humanity does not flee. Humanity survives, and humanity will win. The fleets of humanity glimmered against the black void, shining beacons of hope, courage, and determination. And in that light, the galaxy's deadliest monsters understood something for the first time. They were not facing prey. They were facing humans, and humans never surrendered. The war was not over, but humanity had claimed the first true victory. And from that day forward, they would never stop fighting.